Hi, I'm Aura. Welcome to the open space. If you like what you see in this channel, please subscribe. And just to let you know that I limit my presence on social media just to this channel. So if you feel that you enjoy the content, please forward to your friends and don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always welcome inspiring conversations. After all, that's what this channel is about. Today, I have quite an unusual guest. It's my former student whose name is Joe.
Yep.
And Joe, would you give me permission to tell a few words?
Yes, please go.
Yes, please
everything's on the table. Everything is on the table.
One of the things that I absolutely love about my work, especially working with college students, undergraduate college students, is seeing shaping of the individuality, where the individuality is not something static and fully formed. I believe it's never fully formed, it's always a work in progress, but seeing that shaping and reshaping and to some degree contributing to this shaping of individuality. And Joe, we share passion for long hikes. I know you love hiking and backpacking, and I love hiking. And it seems to me that you made many kind of radical detours through your college years. And we've been on weekly basis, we were meeting one-on-one through individual music lessons for how many years? 3.5, 4? Help me.
3, I believe. 3 years.
Yes. And each semester you will tell me, Aura, I have to tell you something very important. And I'm like, what? I'm doing that. And the next semester, Aura, I have to tell you something very important. And I'm, what? What again? So, and at the same time, you never made the impression of unstable, undecisive person. On the contrary, I had very strong sense that you constantly checking and tuning with your inner core. So you constantly in tune with yourself, questioning things and readjusting yourself, reorienting yourself. And in our first music lesson, I remember I tell it to all students that music is a map. It orients you in a territory of your emotions, of your psyche, of your intellect, and all the building blocks of music and blueprints. And my first question to you, I'm really interested in it. Can you explore what makes you orient yourself in a map of life?
Like, what is the motivation behind?
I don't know how you orient yourself or reorient yourself. It's a process, right? So what?
So speaking on like some of those dilemmas I had is like, you know, like whether it was the Navy or whether I was going to change my major to biology, change university, change all these plans. I think the big motivation I had and all that was just like, I remember I stumbled across, I don't know if it's the exact quote or it's a paraphrasing of a quote. It's like that I think Jung said, but it's like, where you most need to look is where you least want to look.
It could be Jung. It looks like Jung.
Yeah. And I've kind of been obsessed with that idea. And I always try to look at these tensions I have going on in my life. And these,
like dark corners of your soul.
yeah, and these voices that are telling me that not like what I'm doing is wrong and things of this nature, and sometimes it gets me in a loop, right? It also it makes me seem kind of like I'm saying things and what I'm doing is different because I, you know, at the end of the day, I kind of stuck with a path and didn't veer off it too much, at least with my major. But I think that it's, I don't understand how people can go through life with such conviction and confidence in every step. And I think it's a healthy thing to have a little bit of doubt. And I think it's when you have, there's a lot more opportunity for growth in doubt than there is in conviction.
I agree with you, even though there is a trap, because you should know doubt has a quality of being, of paralyzing quality, right? It can paralyze you and prevent you from any action. So how you deal with that?
I have other things in my life going on. You know, like the only thing I can that helps me in times where I'm really stuck on one conundrum in one area is the fact that I'm very thankful that I've tried to have different areas, different hobbies, right? Whether it's fishing or it's music. I have other places and even great relationships. I've been blessed with having great relationships, and I'm lucky that when I think maybe part of the reason why some people have conviction is that they only have a couple things going on in their life. And if they begin to doubt it, then their whole world is blown up. Versus I'm very lucky that I have kind of tentacles. And I think a decent amount of people who are able to have doubts about what they're doing have kind of these roots into other things that they can retreat to in a paralyzing moment where you're like, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't.
And one of these, you mentioned roots and tentacles, right? These are my two favorite words, right? I always use it. So
Yep. What are some of your roots? What are some things that you would say? I mean, obviously piano is probably your main focus. What are the other and teaching? What are some of the other areas that keep you when you're struggling in those, you know, in piano or teaching? What keeps you from going insane?
sense of home. Whatever you call home, that's another thing I want to explore with you. Whatever makes one feel at home at the moment. And it can be a home away from home. It can be many things. It can be a book. It can be a poem. It can be a nature that you find refuge in it, where you gain back your sanity, where I gain back my sanity. It's also playing tennis, where I can just stripe off anything and just be in the state of just play without thinking, just playing. And that brings my sanity back. So many things. Friendship.
Yeah.
It's
That
not
all makes
one
sense.
thing.
I mean,
it's not one thing. It's a home. When I talk to a friend, it's that sense of home. When I'm in nature, in the forest, it's a sense of home. So it's not being homeless.
I think that there's okay.
Go.
I've been thinking, this might be tying into something I've been thinking about lately is so I've been trying to think about how to I think my generation, and specifically, and maybe a couple generations that are a little older than me, have been very over skeptical, over critical of religion. And I think some of the criticism is very welcome. But I think what we might have lost is like there is a giant home base that can be found in spirituality, and that we might be throwing out the baby with the bathwater on this issue. And that I've been trying to think of a way to, maybe divorce the spirituality of the religious context. And what I've kind of come to know is that we all have our own inner religion, at least people who've been able to venture off and experience things. But for example, like I had a cross-country bike ride. When we made it to Seattle, when we first saw the Pacific Ocean, like I can't even explain what the feeling was. It was something surreal. Like, and now that place is something of like a place that I will pilgrimage to. It's a holy land. Like it is a spot that I'll forever revere. I've been lucky enough to fish in Canada, and like that, I mean, my childhood memories are littered with just going to Ontario and just fishing all the time and with certain people. And I think what we should urge people to do is kind of find their holy places and develop a home, a spiritual home, I guess. I guess there's something that's very secure that no one can really take away from you.
Which is quite different from following.
Do you have any places like that for you? Do you have any specific?
Yes. And it's developing sort of collection of these spiritual, as you call them, experiences in your memory. And when the hard moment comes, you go back there, and it nourishes you. It nourishes your soul, and it gives you boost to move forward.
True. And another thing on top of that, I think is, so I'm going to take a side thought off this, but we'll come back. Is that there's certain things that I think we should also keep. There's a big thing on purity in religions. There's pure foods, there's pure behavior. And I think we should actually think of, like, I've started to think of myself, I thought manners, for example, right? I always eat with my mouth open, and my parents are like, what the hell are you doing? Are you raised in a bar? All this other stuff. I always thought that was stupid. I thought it was kind of an arbitrary rule. But it kind of makes sense when I think of, if I start thinking of there's another axis, right? Say a z-axis, where you can rise, where it's the spiritual axis, right? And you have the elevated version of yourself, and then you have the animal version of yourself. And what religions usually define what is animalistic and what is spirit, what is the elevated self, what you should be aiming at. I think I've started doing that for myself, and I've even seen manners, right? Eating with my mouth open, right? Like that, is that really like how I want to portray myself to other people? And, simple things that I just didn't care for and I thought were arbitrary now kind of makes sense in this like field. And also even just habits, like when I get in a rut where I've been losing my self-discipline and things of that nature, and just messing around, finding myself being consumed by my phone, I try to remember that is an animalistic me. Like that is a lesser being. That's a lesser Joe. The elevated Joe is me when I'm playing piano, when I'm reading, when I'm learning. That is the elevated self. And when you create it, where you put it on the pedestal, as people put on religions, right? Like, you can. I've actually feel a stronger connection to trying to be the elevated version of myself. But going back to your thought with having that, there's a lot of spiritual growth in having difficult problems, and whether maybe not overcoming them, but struggling through them. I think you could take so much from that. You can take, and it's the memory of it is right. When I'm even can be brought to small things. Oh, I gotta write an essay. I don't want to write. Like, okay, we've been here before. Like this is nothing new. Even if it's small things, but it carries over.
So what I observed in you, you always asked me for more challenge, and we were a perfect team because I never compromise for less, right? So it's always pushing the boundary. And you're the one who asked me, Aura, please go for it. Push the boundaries. So it's like you gave me green light to do what I love doing, right? By definition. And it's it's tremendous joy of overcoming. And you said overcoming, but then you kind of, it's overcoming, but it's going through it, right? It's becoming and getting on the other side a slightly better version of oneself. It can be minimal dosages, right? Because we talk in these big terms, but even on daily basis, when you mention the etiquette, right? The word etiquette, how we eat, what manners we have, right? Like who cares? You care, right? So it's important to you. So you talking about religion, not as organized religion, right? But as rather a journey of personal exploration and growth.
Yes. And I think we should change the idea of like a religious, is like there's the elevated you who you could be, or there's the lesser you that you could be. And there's certain actions that, whether you know it or not, might move you down on that totem pole. And that the world deserves the elevated you. You
The
know,
world,
that
the
there's some,
people next to you, right?
yeah,
Your parents, your loved ones, your friends, your colleagues, your teammates, your nature, right? It's that simple.
yeah, yeah.
Why do you think many people then rather fall into the, and here I'm linking religion as a group thing, as a group fetishizing. And it seemed to me that you never fell into this category. You are not a group thinker, right? I think it's oxymoron because you cannot be a thinker and be a group thinker at the same time, right? Thinking it's a deeply individual process. So what helped you to escape that trap? Or you've fallen into that trap? Or you never felt desire of belonging to the group?
I would say I had a big challenge growing up. Was I very much seeked attention. I think it's like a family of 9, right? Like you're all in competitive. We've become great storytellers, right? Because
So you
we've all
have
been.
9, wait, how many kids in the
Oh,
family?
I've 9 total, 8 siblings. Sorry, I have 8 siblings, and like I felt like I was always in a competition for attention because there's so many of us who needed attention, right? So it's like if 2 parents can only afford so much attention, so you just increase the denominator of it,
So
and you just want. I wanted more of it as a kid.
You never felt entitled.
No, but I don't think I felt entitled. No, but I sought out attention. Like I saw it to try to entertain. And in this process of like always seeking attention, especially being a younger person and entertaining, and having a personality where I'm willing to take most risks that other people won't. I do terrible things to people, to whether it was even bullying or doing anything for a laugh, for a cheap laugh. And I realized, luckily, I mean, I had people around me that wouldn't laugh, at least the older folks. And that was I valued their attention more than my peers to a certain degree at certain points. And I don't think somewhere along the way either I matured, or I can't put it back to one single thing, but slowly I kind of wiggle my way out of it. And I found that seeking of attention, right, I started thinking like a group, or going to the extremes end of that group, and trying to like, okay, well, I'll enact it, right? Everyone has, right, in this group has something that they want to do, or they'll say, I'll act it out, right, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And by me acting it out, I suffered a lot of the consequences of this terrible groupthink, and I paid the consequences. I mean, almost freshman year, I unfortunately, luckily the girl I've talked to, she's doing fine now, but I really like terrible things on the internet, on Twitter, and I sent a side by side of her with of just bad shit. Anyways, I went to the principal's office. They brought a police car up to the high school. They almost sent me to the police station. Luckily, my mom was so for it. She was like, "Yeah, put him in the police. Put him, take him." Right, like that. They were like, "No, you are the police station back home," right? And I mean, I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, I felt terrible. Everyone like shame to an extreme degree, and I felt it, and it was a good thing that I got shamed. And I
So
think
wait. Can I stop you for a moment? So you consider shame a good thing in certain situation,
yes,
a necessary thing?
Yes, for sure. I don't think. I mean, again, if you're, I think shame is a very good thing if it's used properly. I think it could be very shame with a compassionate, like with a sprinkle of compassion in it. Yeah, when you actually want the best for the person, shame is a very good thing. I think
shame
those people
with a sprinkle of compassion.
Yeah, I think that's like the difference. When you're just shaming to hurt
for
someone
the sake of shaming.
For the sake of shaming, there's you're definitely the motivation's not there, and you're just using it as a weapon, not as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but anyway, so in my case, I think because, and I think that's something else that's, there's a lot of things. But anyways, so how I got out of groupthink, though, back to this, was probably that. And so ever since then, I feel a rigidity in people trying to tell people how to live their lives, how to do things. This is the right way, this is the wrong way, this is how we should think, all those other things. It's too rigid. Yet on the other side, I could explain another
But it
story.
gives you sense of community and belonging.
For example,
false
I'll tell
sense
another
of community
story.
and belonging,
Again,
right?
back. Well, I will explain. Let me explain a story, and then we can tell me if you think it's something different than groupthink or group identity.
Mm-hmm.
So I was terrible. So a year later, after that incident, that cyberbullying incident, I then had a girlfriend, and things ended between us, and I was terrible to her. She was terrible to me. At the end, we were really just trying to hurt each other. And so I went online. I kind of baited her in a trap in a text message, screenshotted it, posted it online, made her look terrible, right? Made myself look holy, and put it on Twitter for only half hour, right? 45 minutes. And I even asked my buddies, my close friends, should I do this, right? And they all said yes, right? And they were laughing, all this other stuff. Shows you how important to have good friends are, not shitty ones. But anyways, so I go ahead, I post it. I really just hurt this girl, like hurt her bad, and it's blowing up. I mean, it's getting retweeted. People are liking it. It's going crazy, right? And luckily, I was on a wrestling team with a kid that was older than me, and his name was JT, and fantastic dude, top-notch guy, like authentic, just everything you want out of a man. He was a man. He was one of the few people who, even as an 18-year-old, was a man. And so I put this out when I was 16, and her friends are calling, saying you're a little bitch, you're right, stop, put this down, all this other stuff. It's not getting to me. And then JT goes, and I fished with him, I wrestled with him, and he said, Joe, I thought you were a fisherman. Boom. It hit. It hit. I mean, because I thought about all the old guys who taught me how to fish. I thought it brought me to an ethical code that I didn't even knew existed. Right. And I immediately took it down. I apologized. I said I was in the wrong. This is not an accurate representation of this girl. This is, you're right. And I mean, that call to a group I identified with actually got me. When people were insulting me and saying, don't, blah, 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 all this other stuff. But I also was getting a lot of praise, which didn't help. But the thing that brought me back to reality was a call to something that I really identified with. It's got me to stop doing it. And I think, I mean, so like I'm in this conundrum. I do actually think that groupthink, group morals, right? It was like that ethical code is kind of a religion on its own, right?
Mhm.
And has a very strong and compelling and great thing tied to it. As well as, as soon as things become very, I don't know what the point is. Do you have any idea of what the difference would be between that and something else?
You mean groupthink?
Yeah, groupthink and like a rigidity among groups, or like an orthodoxy per se, something along that line.
I always run away as far as and as fast as I can from that kind of thinking, and from that kind of belonging. And since early age, marching with the crowd never was my thing, maybe because I grew up in society where it was a cult of marching together, right? Even if on holidays. So there is something deeply reducing to the spirit, to my spirit. I couldn't even say it as a child. I didn't know the word spirit, but there's something deeply reducing to the human spirit in marching together. And to me, that group thinking, it's marching together. It holds my mind, my spirit hostage of something. It's very illiberate. Am I using the right word?
Yeah. I don't know if that's the right word, but I get it.
Holding me hostage, and I don't want to be hostage of something. I want to come to something myself and decide for myself. So I don't know if I answered that. Your question. But I never, I don't have experience of belonging or seeking that kind of belonging to any groups.
Yeah.
Not even book club. But I immensely enjoy sense of belonging, let's say, in a choir singing or in playing with other musicians. But it's a different kind, or playing tennis, right? The group play, it's a different kind of belonging.
Yeah.
So
so here's I get what you're saying with that there's something that like is really reduces freedom by thinking as a group member. But I also see that there's like, for example, when he called to me as a fisherman, right? What I'm trying to say is I had a group identity, and I usually think that group identities are dangerous. But this time, it was very beneficial. I'm asking, what do you think are some of the healthy, like what are some of the characteristics of a healthy group that one should try to belong to?
So from what you're saying, there is
Or are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hello, Aura?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? So something happened to our Wi-Fi connection, but we reestablished it. So where we left it off, the differentiation between damaging groupthink and beneficial, I would call it affiliation, voluntarily self-affiliation. And tell me what you think. It seems to me that's how I affiliate with people, by the degree of their expertise or by the degree of their mastery of a skill, of competence in something. Let me give you an example. If I affiliate with a group of musicians that I highly respect as amazing musicians, and I want to learn from them or to collaborate with them. Same with certain intellectuals, right? That I'm just fascinated with their minds, right? And the thought, the depth of thought they produce. So that's my affiliation, or my affiliation with certain authors, right? Like, yeah. So that is beneficial.
I will.
Would you call it a group thing? I don't know.
You're right. It's affiliation. It's a different thing. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, because now that I'm thinking about it, the people I have fished with, like fished long days with, have, and where I was like, we were trying to figure out what is going on. What do the fish want today? It's just a puzzle. It's essentially, that's all fishing is. It's just, this is the patterns. This is the weather. What do we throw? How do we get them? How do we convince them to bite? And I've done that. The most enjoyable times is when I'm with people who are way competent, either more competent than me or at my level, or maybe not even a competence, in interest, similar interests and similar mm-hmm. goals. We have the same end goals, because sometimes I've fished with people that are way out of my league. And I've also fished with people that are a little under my league, but we still have this, what are the fish doing? And versus there's a very different thing that I've had, which I wouldn't call certain people fishermen, is that they're just out there to catch fish, and that's completely fine. That's enjoyable. Like but I wouldn't say that they're a part of, like, when JT was making the reference, I thought you were a fisherman. I didn't think of the people who we were just drinking beer at night trying to catch catfish, right? I was thinking of the people where we woke up at 4 a.m. and we were trying to figure out what was going on. It was like a very serious nature of it. And it's both competent and having a similar interest. And I think it's somewhere along that. But so affiliate is that, I think that might be a good defining point.
Affiliation, because it gives sense of genuine, authentic, mutual respect. So nobody tells you how to think. No, so it's totally different grounds, different grounds. And this leads to authentic relationships, professional, let's say, by mutual interest, by cooperation, call it cooperation, or participation, where people participate in something, they aim for something, right? The common aim, and they participate and cooperate while participating. So that's creative, call it creative collaboration. But all of it, it's very rewarding because it makes you look up to somebody, but there's no shame involved. It's just like learning. And to me, it's most enjoyable kind of scenarios.
And we kind of need there's a social need to have these to socialize, right? And so this is, I think, what these are the churches I think people should try to sign up for.
Absolutely. And my genuine hope that when the tide of certain ideological stupidities will go away, people will come to realize that the true bonds, things that bond us together creatively, where we all grow.
Do you think everyone though has a passion though? This is a, like, to maybe play devil's advocate on this. I know so many people who, maybe it might be life decisions, but maybe it's just in their nature where they don't really find attachment to many things, or they don't have the means to explore some of their passions. I mean, fishing's an expensive hobby. You know, it's something that it's you can do it cheaply, right? All you need is rod, line, a couple of lures, but certain presentations actually require to have different rods. If you look at some of the pros, they have 20 rods on the deck for a tournament.
Joe, I don't hear you. Joe? Okay, we had another glitch in a Wi-Fi. Who knows? These are the unpredictables of life. Joe, can you bring back the points that you mentioned before the interruption happened?
So I had 2 points kind of to play devil's advocate to what we were saying with affiliation, finding meaningful groups to belong to. The first one is, what if it's in people's natures? Like, some people are just born genetically to not have too many passions. Like, they just don't have it, right? And then the second thing is, maybe they have it's in their genes, right? But because their environment is at the point where they can't even express it, they might not even have the means to explore these things. And I was talking, when I was talking about is fishing rods are expensive, for example. A nice piano, even a crappy one, can be, although everything's getting cheaper these days, which is nice, it's still, there is some financial barriers. So, like, my question was going to be, what do you think we should do to try to maybe address these things?
Well, I think everything starts with access to education. And by education, I mean well-rounded education, which involves sports and music instruments, exposure to literature, to great books, to music, to any possible means where a young person can explore their passion. So I think the education system must be, we have to not just rethink it, but make these opportunities truly accessible through low-income people, to remote areas, to minorities, to everybody, because everything starts with education. So just providing this opportunity is what we call. Now, on the other hand, you said a person might not know what their passion is, right? Provide opportunities to, and here is a role of a teacher, of a mentor, And that mentor can be any person. It can be a sport coach, a soccer coach. It can be piano teacher. It can be history teacher. It can be your lab advisor, to push the person to explore who they are. And I think if we realize who we are through dangerous moments, to push out of comfort zone into the risk zone. Oftentimes, it's hard to overestimate, let's say, gap years. I always encourage students to go as far as you can. Go backpacking, go take semester abroad, go get lost in the woods, expose yourself to unknown, to uncertain, and to dangerous. And that's help people wake up to their passions. Not always, but it's definitely
I would agree with that. I think that's like, that could be that seems like probably the best solution. And on the waking up to the passions, or waking up by taking risks and kind of waking up to things.
Passion, it's not even it's not something you wake up from Monday to Tuesday, here I found my passion. No, you might even not know it's your passion. Sometimes you have to lose something to realize, like for me, I had to quit piano. I thought I hated it. I had to quit it to realize something is really missing in my life and to come back to it. So that's another scenario. I didn't know it's my passion. I hated it. So there is no one way.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience too. I mean, so wrestling, I wrestled my whole life since the age of 4. I started wrestling, and I didn't realize what I was doing until my senior year of high school. I didn't realize, I didn't make it a very valuable, I didn't see the value in it as much. I thought I was literally just suffering for the sake of suffering, because that is a very difficult sport. But I had a coach that, you know, he said something. Everyone in the stands wants to be you. Why are they there? Why are they there? Yeah, maybe they're watching their own sons and daughters and things like that, but they come to watch you. Only one person can wrestle at once. And you only have 6 minutes on that mat, right? It's only 6 minutes. And so, I mean, when he framed it that way, and all of a sudden, all these skills I was learning for I think it was like 13 years up until that point, right? And then acquiring, and I always had the skills, but I never had, I'd freak myself out. There's a lot that goes into when you're just wrestling one-on-one with someone. The accountability is right there, and if you lose, you lose. It's right on your shoulders, and I'd always psych myself out, and it clicked. It was, and once I started realizing it, then it became a passion. It became like a part of me. It became something I identified with.
Because your coach, a wise man, he reoriented you from being self-centered. He reoriented you for here you're responsible for your performance, because somebody is watching, that somebody is there. You cannot fail that other person, right?
Yeah, he really made it seem like you were wrestling for something that was greater than yourself.
Yes.
There was something greater. And even more so when it came to team aspect of wrestling, because in a really cool, I think it's a really cool sport. You can win a match for your team if you lose in the right way. Because if you just lose by less than 8 points, that's 3 points, team points. If you lose by more than 8, you get majored, that's 4. If you win by 15, that's tech fall, they end the match, that's 5. If you get pinned, that's 6, right? So towards the end of the season, sometimes when we were going up, and we were a very good team, so we had a chance to compete in team state. Going out there and losing in the right terms, even for your fellow teammates, you stay off your back. You stay, no matter what, you stay off your back. You do not get pinned, right? That mentality of, and you know, you're wrestling for more than, it's not just you out there anymore. Really changed it. And I think, again, it's affiliation. It went from not just, I went from being an individual. So here's a nice thing that I guess this could wrap back to is, it's hard to gain meaning as an individual, but it's dangerous to leave your meaning just to the group. And somewhere in between, you got to find the right balance, or else you won't have that connection. We're two social creatures.
We're two socials. It's being individual. You don't lose your individuality when you in the right kind of affiliation. Your individuality grows through this because you're in a process of making something greater than yourself, right? As you said just a moment ago. And that brings us to the point, it gives meaning. So it's like you surrender your individuality. I call it with my students, you have to lose yourself to find yourself, right? It's like you have to blend in, but you lose yourself for the service of something. But at the end, it makes you stronger. It makes you better, right? It reveals to you something about you.
Yes.
Just like playing in the orchestra. You're not a soloist, right? But does it make you a lesser of a musician? No. No, opposite, right? And it keeps your ego in check all the time. That's another important thing, right?
Yes. I think that's another thing that might have to also be brought up is like the ego. I think a lot of things that even this group attachment it's you're adding an ego to your already ego. And there's something very powerful in that. And I think some of these people are very ideological, are some of the most egotistical people I've ever met. They're very self-righteous, very, and the people who find belonging with others, have some, like you're saying, you have to lose yourself before you find yourself. I very much agree with that.
It's not, you can call it humility.
Yes, but I think it's something like that, but
it's like you happily takes this humility.
It's volunteer. It has to be voluntary.
Yeah.
It has to be a voluntary. And the people who don't take themselves seriously are my favorite people to be around. And the people who don't take me seriously, to a certain extent, I love being around. I love people who can make fun of me.
Tell me why you love being around me then.
Oh my gosh, because you're a pain in my ass. Really, it's you again. It's I think that's key, because even
wait.
I'm enlisting in the Navy, right? All these things.
Joe, I lost you. Okay,
right?
You're back. Wait, Joe.
Oh, okay, I'm back. Okay.
You sort of back.
Can you hear
You're
me?
half frozen.
Hello.
Yeah, you're kind of in the matrix now. Wait. Okay, start talking.
Okay. So, where was I? Oh, so
Joe, it's bad. We have to
like
stop.
being around people who don't
Joe,
take me seriously.
Joe.
And
we have to stop. Okay, it was a third time interruption. Holy Trinity, right?
I'm in a different spot. It should be better.
We're back. Yes. So what were you saying?
we were talking about not taking ourselves seriously. I was talking about how we've enjoyed both of our presences, I think, uh, when we're taking lessons together, because we kind of shared that, and it just allows for humor to enter in. And it allows for an honest realization that we're not perfect. And it's so relieving to know when people actually have an accurate model of who you are. And I think when people don't take you so seriously, they actually know me better, right? When people don't take me seriously, when people call me out of my bullshit, when people make fun of me, I feel like this
You
sense of
feel you
home.
want to be the real you. You don't have to project a certain persona or try to fit their expectations.
Yes.
Yes. Which again leads to more authentic connection with whoever it is you are. It can be any person, right?
And in those people that I've talked about, JT, right? I talked about someone as a man who really came out in a time where a bunch of boys, that's what I'd say, a bunch of boys were telling me to keep it going, right? A bunch of other people were antagonistic. He came out, right? And he's the type of guy who's very goofy. He makes fun of me, but he came to serious. It's like he knew me, right? He knows when to draw the line of this is not okay behavior, Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and when to give me shit and all this other thing. And my coach, my wrestling coach, we had this similar relationship. But when it came down to like, it's your time to wrestle, it's your time to wrestle. And I think so people who don't take me seriously have an accurate model of me and know me better, know when to stop, like when to take me seriously and when not to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a, and so I think it's more just a telltale sign of someone who's like actually knows me, and actually is in touch with the world. And I think, yeah, I'm just leave it at that.
Well, because the world is the way it is, right? And it's very important to get an accurate picture the way you are. It's kind of like these people that your coaches, right? They don't take you seriously. They see your imperfections, which allows them to make more accurate diagnostics of who you are at the present moment and help you to elevate yourself into tomorrow or something, right? So it's not idealistic picture of you, right? It's not below, not above, but right where it is.
Yes.
And it seems that we talked about society in general. It seems to me, I don't know if you share my observation, that our society is oftentimes leaning into dangerous zone of idealism. It's like everybody have to fit certain ideological ideal,
and it's
else, right? Or
yes.
you will be punished, right? And no redemption.
But it is this, it seems like a very, very binary. It's like either or.
Either or, yeah.
Right winged or you're left wing, and there's very little wiggle room between the two.
Yeah.
It's why I don't enjoy politics. Is no longer enjoyable for me to talk about.
No.
With people.
Neither.
Because there is this rigidity. You can't have, even if it's just one conservative point or one liberal point, without people just putting you in a box,
mm-hmm.
or having a map for, okay, this is who you are, this is who Joe is. That's I don't enjoy it.
No, neither I. That's why we're not talking politics, right?
Exactly.
Joe,
exactly.
Last thing I want to ask you, when you mentioned, we talked about models, right? Your coaches who were modeling certain things for you, and you mentioned that you knew right away that that's a man, a real man. So especially for boys, I think it's very important to see a model of real, certain qualities of a real man. And I'm not talking about alpha male or macho, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what are the qualities that you look up to, that you would like to cultivate in yourself?
I think it
The
is
qualities that you will attribute to
yeah.
something you would call a real man.
It's hard to define, but I think a real man, and I think it's also it's a little different, but I have the same respect. I think there's a difference between girls and women, and there's a difference between boys and men.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect women, and I respect men. I have very little respect for 30-year-old girls and 25-year-old
30-year-old girls.
and
I love it.
25-year-old
So
boys,
please tell me. So what you define as 30-year, it could be 50-year-old girl,
Yeah.
right? So what you define as that
difference.
you call it infantility, maybe?
Yes. It's someone who has their priorities straight, in my opinion. Someone who's confident, someone who has responsibilities and ties to this world. And I think the biggest separation is people who have experienced things and have learned from their experience versus people who just talk. There's a lot of, I think there's a big separation between doers and like talkers. And you can tell when someone's speaking from experience, when people are just blowing shit out their pie hole, and I think that's the biggest difference. It's like I can tell. It's hard to like like I just spoke to a man. I just spoke to a woman. It's like it's. I think the biggest, humans, we're not necessarily built to understand certain things like stats. I think stats are a hard thing. Like what is a billion? But what we're really good at is like seeing who's full of shit and who's not. Who's the genuine person? Who's the authentic person? And I think that's one of the reasons why podcasts are booming and no one's trusting the news anymore. Is because there is this, we can tell, okay, that is a puppet versus that is a real man, right? There's Pinocchios and then there's the real deal. Or that's a real woman, right? There's a bunch of Pinocchios though. But I think we have this somewhat instinct. I think a lot of people do. And we can just, you know it when you see it.
Yes. So you want to say that maybe we should, it brings us back to the very beginning of our conversation when I said that I always observed you being in tune with your instincts, with your intuitions, with who you are. And now you, at the end, right? We're about to wrap up our conversation. We all have these instincts. So should we trust them more? Instincts could be dangerous.
They are. Instincts can be very impulsive. I think you gotta have proper regulation of yourself. And then you can go. Like, you can't trust the instinct without having discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like discipline has to come first because
it keep it check your animal side, right?
Yeah.
We talked about. Yes.
So I think that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's
That's
kind of
all to it. That's it. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Everything else is in
wrapped
between, right?
we wrapped the whole world up in 1 hour. Or look at us. I'm running for
without
president
even
in
without
2024.
even putting a metronome on.
Exactly.
Well, but we will continue because I really want to
Yeah.
talk with you about your one of the strongest affiliations that really, I think it's a huge backbone for you, is your family.
Yes.
And I would love to talk with you about that, specifically about family, not family values, but family
I
and what
would
it means
enjoy
to
that
you.
too.
Okay,
Aura, this was a pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
so it's to be continued kind of thing.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
part one. We take undefined intermission and we will be back for part two, right?
And hopefully I'll have better Wi-Fi by then. Perfect. All right, well,
Okay,
you have
Joe.
a great day, Aura.
You too.
I'll see you later.
See
This
you.
is Randy. All right, bye.
Hi, Randy. Bye. Stay goofy. Okay, that was the end of part one, and to be continued. See you soon.